Sports with Double R, right here on the Common Ground Media Network. You're listening to K98 FM's K98 Talk.
Well, good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you might be. I am Double R, and this is America Off the Rails. It is Monday, November 18th, 2013, at the time this show is being recorded, also being picked up and streamed coast to coast and worldwide, thanks to K98Talk.com. So, do have a lot going on. I'm probably going to ruffle some feathers today. I have to tell you, folks, I've been doing a lot of digging, because here's the thing. You know, you keep seeing, or at least I do, I keep hearing about all these negative stories in the media about law enforcement and all the crazy things that are going on with them. And as a gentleman who had a badge and a gun on for a vast majority of my adult life, I have to say, for the longest time, I've been coming down on the side of law enforcement. Because I've been in those situations, and I understand, you know, it's really easy to Monday morning quarterback when you're not in the middle of a situation. But I have to tell you, folks, there are so many things that are coming out now, and it saddens me. So, the title of today's show is Stop the World Ma, I Want to Get Off. That is basically because it seems to me, at least especially in this country, of all places, we are slowly devolving into a police state, which it seems is one of the last things our founding fathers would have wanted. And that's what I'm going to spend a good portion of today talking about, is some stories that I found and some statistics that I found that honestly really disturb me. And I'm not, even when I give you these stories, I'm not saying that they are complete fact, in evidence, in toto, the truth. What I'm saying is, I want to give you my perspective on some things that I'm uncovering, and since I do know that, because I have several friends who are in law enforcement, I'm sure I'm probably going to get some messages and say, what are you doing and what are you thinking? But this is me trying to shine a light into what I'm afraid is becoming a very dark, scary place. So I'm not trying to bash the police, I'm not trying to make them seem like a bunch of idiots. There are some in that profession that do a good enough job of that on their own, and some of you right now that know me are going, yeah, and you did too, but that would be a topic for another day. But yeah, I mean, as of right now, folks, I have to tell you, because like I said, there have been more and more stories coming out about police corruption and things that they do that are just completely insane, and they just, on the face of it, they really do seem completely to be basically power-hungry, power-tripping individuals at this point. And I'm sure there are those who are in that particular profession who actually are power-tripping, power-hungry individuals. And I'm not trying to give those of you who put that badge and uniform on every day, like I used to do, a bad name. Because there are folks who go about it and try to do it for all the right reasons. And then, sadly, there are also temptations that you face on a daily basis. And sometimes people fall by the wayside because of those temptations, and that's part of what we're going to talk about today too. So just as a little bit of a preface, I am not trying to demean, deface, or debase anybody's police departments or the fact that there are a select few folks who decide every day to put on a uniform and put their lives in danger for everyone else. But I am saying, for those of you who are doing it right and do it correctly, it's time to stop protecting those of you who you know are doing it wrong. Because all they're doing is giving the rest of you guys a bad name. I'm not in that field anymore, so I have no skin in the game any longer. You guys do. You guys are the ones that get looked on like a bunch of hypocrites and like a bunch of jackbooted thugs because of the few among you who are doing this incorrectly. If I'm going to be trying to wake up the rest of the country and make them understand that things are not the way they should be, then how could I not do that when, for 14 years I did what you do every day, and I was in the middle of traffic stops and drug busts and doors being kicked in and all of that stuff. So I understand, and it's one of the worst jobs in the world. The only thing I can think of that would be any worse and any more thankless, at least up until recently, would have been being in the military. Because for the longest time, we were completely anti-soldier. That seems like it's finally turned the corner to a point, I think maybe the pendulum may be starting to swing back the other way, unfortunately. But that again is a story for another day. So, I mean, as of right now, I do want to go ahead and get into the meat of what I'm going to talk about today, but I do want to take a second to give a shout out to our sponsor for this half hour. That would be, one moment. Okay, anyway, sorry. That would be the Right Design and Repair Team. They are actually the exclusive website designers and hosters for Common Ground Media Group Oklahoma. Now, that is my personal company. I do work for K98 Talk, and I also produce a lot of the shows that are on there. But Common Ground Media Group Oklahoma is my company. This particular site and host designer is not affiliated with K98 Talk, but specifically my company. So, but yeah, if you are in the neighborhood for anyone to do site hosting, web design, actually I have two different recommendations I can make, and because I have a friend of mine who's been doing it for years as well, who does the work for K98 Talk, and then I have this gentleman who is putting together the stuff for my company. So if you're interested, hit me up at r@k98talk.com. I'll give you their contact information, and you can actually contact them both for quotes and see how it works out. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and get started with today's show. Again, this is not me trying to give anyone in law enforcement a bad name. One of the things that I found, because I was looking for more recent statistics, these are from March 4th of 2013. These are basically the highest misconduct rates by agency for local law enforcement of particular areas. This is ranked 1 through 20. Number 1 on the list would be Palm Beach County in the state of Florida. There are a number of different statistics here that I'm going to go ahead and just kind of, I'm not really going to go into all of them. I'm just going to kind of give you the top 5, and you guys can find all this information on a link that I will give out later in the show. But the top 5 worst cities, actually they're not even in order, I guess. I guess it's going off the percentages, because there is a percentage that they're using, which is a little hard to understand. One moment, please. Percentage of misconduct reports. For Palm Beach County, the percentage is 3.52, which with a number of 22 reports. So instead of just going through it individually for each city, I'm just going to give you the overall statistics. From April to September of 2009, this is where this information came from, 1 out of every 116.4 officers allegedly engaged in misconduct around the United States. 207 police chiefs and sheriffs were cited for misconduct. 215 fatalities were reported in connection with alleged misconduct. 2,854 total officers allegedly engaged in misconduct, and $128,306,406 was spent on police misconduct-related civil litigation. So yeah, think about that. Granted, there are a lot of police officers. So, we're still talking about a very small percentage. 1 out of every 116, basically. But that's 2,854 total officers in 2009. That's a lot of police. And it's like crazy things. This is some of the stuff that I've been uncovering, and I'm just scratching my head about it. And this one is actually a probation officer who I will not mention by name. None of the names in these stories will be mentioned. But basically, there was a 12-pound dog that was barking and harassing a probation officer who was 300 pounds and 6 feet tall. Apparently, because the animal was acting in menacing behavior. Remember, 12-pound dog. He shot him and killed him. Saying, I think there may have been something you could do besides shoot the dog. And this one goes into my what the heck were you thinking file. This one, Oakland cops point guns at a sleeping baby, and this was posted on February 4th, 2013. The latest report on Oakland Police Department misconduct made by Independent Monitor has revealed numerous irregularities and several shocking incidents involving Oakland police officers. Anyway, sorry. Our version of Snurdly here at Common Ground Media keeps shooting me messages and be like, hey, you need to talk about this guy. You need to talk about that guy. You know, that works better when I have a co-host, because one of us can keep talking while the other of us is catching up on what you're saying. But yeah, I plan on speaking about that in a moment. That was actually one of my next topics. I was just kind of going in order. But yeah, anyway, he's like, you should talk about that cop that shot in the minivan. So yeah, that's on the list. Because yeah, that's one of the reasons why I kind of put this stuff together, because this is really getting on my nerves. So, but yeah. So yeah, Snurdly, I'm going back to work now, sir. So, the latest report on Oakland Police Department misconduct made by Independent Monitor Robert Warshaw has revealed numerous irregularities and several shocking incidents involving Oakland police officers. Perhaps the most improper use of force took place during a house search, when two police officers pointed their guns at a sleeping 19-month-old baby. It was obvious that the child couldn't pose any threat to them, but they put its life in danger anyway. According to the report, the crime they were investigating involved a misdemeanor offense. The reporter didn't include any other details about this incident, but he listed several complaints that include unnecessary use of force and general hostility towards the residents, as well as failing to resolve Occupy Oakland-related investigations. The officers' refusal to cooperate with internal affairs has prevented many individuals from being held responsible for their actions. Supervisors were reluctant to take disciplinary action, even when presented with clear evidence like videos of incidents. Okay, so I gotta weigh in on this one. Okay, so there are several reports coming out about the Oakland Police Department with allegations of misconduct, this, that, and the other, and they're refusing to cooperate with internal affairs. I gotta say, I've never really been a fan of internal affairs. I mean, you know, cops investigating other cops. No. That never really sat well with me. But at the same time, if they're refusing to cooperate at all, then I'm pretty sure there's probably a regulation somewhere that says they can be suspended. So this story doesn't say anything about whether or not they have been removed from active duty or possibly placed on desk duty, dependent on the outcomes of these supposedly stalled investigations. But I'm just saying, it would seem that may be something that would need to happen, because obviously, if they're not cooperating with the investigations, there's reasons they're not. So I would sincerely hope that the folks that are in charge of these investigations are taking steps to remove these particular officers from street duty while they're trying to iron all this stuff out. I can only assume from the tone of the article that hasn't happened. I hope I'm wrong. But because it really doesn't go into much detail. So yeah, I mean, and the hits just keep coming, folks. I mean, there was a 9-year-old schoolgirl, actually it looks like a couple of them, that were actually arrested. I hadn't looked into that one that much. I've just been kind of skimming headlines for the last couple of days trying to get an idea of what I wanted to talk about. So this is from the Baltimore police area. It might sound like a joke, but this outrageous event actually took place at Morrill Park Elementary School after a school fight. The officers from Baltimore Police Department arrested 3 9-year-old girls and an 8-year-old boy on aggravated assault charges after a schoolyard fight that broke out 9 days prior to the arrest. What makes it so shocking is the fact that the children were treated as adult suspects, and as soon as they were taken out of the class and into the principal's office, they were handcuffed and arrested. In defense of their action, police spokesman, who shall remain nameless, said that they handled the children as they would any felony suspect due to the fact that it was more than just a school kids brawl. Allegedly, one of the kids threatened to kill one of their parents by forcing kill one of their peers by forcing their head on the railroad track, and the other held another kid's head underwater, which made the school authorities ask police for help. And I mean, come on. They're kids. Does anybody not remember, that they've proven biologically that, until the age of 25, you really have no cognitive reasoning as far as consequences of your actions? That part of your brain isn't even fully developed until you're 25. So can you really, think that a kid who says, "Hey, I'm gonna kill you by holding your head on a railroad track"? I mean, granted, it should be taken seriously, but taking it this far? Did they really? I don't know. It just, absolute power corrupts absolutely, and it seems like that's exactly where we're headed. Oh, this one's from across the pond. I thought that was a little humorous. The headline reads, "British cop spent 20 minutes chasing himself." This might sound like a plot for a comedy show, but the hilarious event actually took place in Sussex County, Great Britain. An undercover police officer was checking out an area of the town that was recently hit with a series of burglaries when he was spotted by one of the CCTV operators. The operator failed to recognize a colleague, and he contacted the officer about a man acting suspiciously in the area he was patrolling. The officer set out to trace the man, unaware that he was actually after himself. For a whole 20 minutes, he kept miraculously turning into the same alleys as the suspect, but he couldn't see anyone on the streets. Who knows for how long would this okay. Grammar, people. Who knows how long this bizarre chase could have gone on if it weren't for one of the sergeants who came in the CCTV control room and recognized the suspicious plainclothes man. When he started laughing hysterically, the operator finally realized his mistake and informed the officer that he could stop the pursuit. I'm sorry, but that's just funny. 20 minutes. Okay, I'm just thinking, first of all, the guy in the field, when the guy that's watching you on camera keeps saying, "Hey, you're right there," I don't see anybody. After a few minutes, you figure one of them probably might have should have caught on. 20 minutes chasing himself. Why do I suddenly have that one? I can't even remember the name of the movie, but there was a movie with a British cop who was like, it kind of reminded me of Benny Hill, but like newer. But anyway, yeah, I digress. Sorry, I had to kind of lighten the mood a little bit because some of these stories are annoying me and irritating the crap out of me. And this is from my How Desperate Are You file. Headline, "Deputy lets a female prisoner escape in exchange for sex." A former 41-year-old Sheriff's Department deputy of Tuscaloosa County, who shall remain nameless, was sentenced to 185 days in jail for having sex with a female prisoner on the hood of his police cruiser. He accepted the prisoner's offer to have sex with her in exchange for letting her go, which are felonies of accepting a bribe and voluntarily letting a prisoner escape, punishable with up to 15 years in prison. So getting away with just 6 months behind bars was a pretty good deal for the officer. The event occurred when the woman was arrested in Genesee County on account of probation violation in Tuscola County. I think I said that wrong a minute ago. And was handed over to the officer to be transported to a jail in Cairo. Thanks to the bribe-loving cop, she never made it there. During the ride, the woman offered the officer to perform services in exchange for freedom if he let her go, and he agreed, receiving both oral and normal intercourse on the hood of the car. He kept his part of the bargain and let the woman run away. Six months. That's all you got, really? See, this is why I wish I'd never really started looking into this stuff, because the more I find of it, the angrier I get, because it happens all over the time. And I mean, these are just from the what I call the police stupidity files. There are even worse ones if you start changing over to some of the other categories I find that I'd like to actually call police police brutality. Use of excessive force and shotguns on women during arrest is one of the first ones that I found. 2 police officers in Marion County were arrested and charged with misconduct in office and assault and battery first degree after they used excessive force on a woman they were arresting. The 2 officers, again who shall remain nameless, were attempting to arrest an unknown female perpetrator and resolved to using excessive force and shocked her numerous times with a shotgun. While it is not known whether the woman was being aggressive or violent, the claims that the officers used excessive force have not been taken lightly. The State Law Enforcement Division of Oregon is investigating the case, and the 2 officers have already been fired from the Marion County Police Department and could face up to 10 years in prison if found guilty. Both officers were given a $10,000 personal recognizance bond by the Marion County Magistrate. Just saying, folks, how long is this kind of stuff going to be going on before... I guess, again, and I'm sorry, I know I'm kind of all over the place with this today, but these are emotional subjects for me. There was a time, and I know that you guys are still out there, so I'm not downing everybody, but there was a time when putting on that uniform actually meant something. That you were going to make a difference, that you were going to do what you could to keep the little corner of your world that you had at least somewhat control over. You were going to do what you could to make it safer and better for those around you. And it seems like anymore it's turned into, I'm going to find a way to use this badge and this power that I've been presented to get whatever I can out of it along the way. And it's that, I guess that's my biggest concern, is this isn't just what's going on in law enforcement anymore. This happens everywhere. As soon as someone gets a hint or a taste of power, all of a sudden they're doing whatever they can to hold on to and continue to grow that particular power. This is a symptom of a problem that is everywhere. It's happening in our government, it's happening in our law enforcement, it happens in corporations, it happens everywhere. We have stopped worrying about our fellow man, and now all we're worrying about is what can I get along the way while I'm here and screw everybody else. You don't believe me? Just take a look around you. Look at all the people that are so busy making sure that their bottom lines are bigger, fatter, and better than they've ever been, that we have a stock market with record highs, while we have folks that are being cut back to 32 hours a week or less of employment to be able to protect companies from this monstrosity of an idea that a community organizer came up with. I'm done calling him the commander-in-chief, folks. I'm done calling him the president. I don't care if you want to say that I'm disrespecting him. I'm not disrespecting the office. I'm disrespecting the man currently holding the office. He doesn't deserve that title. He's been nothing but an academic. He's been nothing but a community organizer for the majority of his adult life. And sadly, the same thing that seems to be affecting the general populace as far as, I'm only out to worry about what I get from myself, so I'm going to vote for the folks that are going to tell me that are going to keep giving me more of the stuff that I need to survive. Sadly, it seems to be endemic everywhere. That's what these kind of stories have been bringing to light for me, because I've been focusing so much lately on the political side of things and how corrupt and dark and slimy that's become, that I've really only started to notice that seems to be happening everywhere. That's the scary thing, folks. We have reached a point in our life where, honestly, a C.S. Lewis quote actually fits things rather nicely. Because we really have, it seems, become that type of society. And what I'm actually talking about here is this particular quote right here. And this is, of course, from C.S. Lewis. Hell is a state where everyone is perpetually concerned about their own dignity and advancement, and where everyone has a grievance. Well, I gotta tell you, if that's C.S. Lewis' definition of hell, then we're there now. Because that's all that seems to matter anymore, is how can I get ahead? How can I be better? And if I can't get there, then it's somebody else's fault, which is basically the layman's definition of a grievance. I have a problem, but it's not my fault. So, I ask you, when's the last time you took a real hard, long look at the world around you? Because I gotta tell you, that's what I'm starting to do, and I don't like what I see. I don't like hearing about CEOs that have millions and millions of dollars worth of bonuses every year, and people that are being paid minimum wage to do a job. I'm not a fan of mandatory minimum wage raises, but I am a fan of paying people a wage that they deserve for how hard they work. And I'm not saying there shouldn't be an entry-level position, and I'm not saying if you spend 20 years as a cashier, then at some point you should be making $60,000 a year to push buttons on a cash register. But what I am saying is that we need to find ways to make sure that advancement is open for these people, because that's the other thing that I'm starting to find more and more of. You get in at a company at a bottom rung position, hoping to work your way up, and it's nearly impossible. Not always, and there are things that can be done, but it seems more and more that if you want to advance, you have to do things that maybe you didn't think you were going to be able to do, or maybe that you can't do. I found myself in that situation more than once. So that's normally when I'll fall back, regroup, start over, and start thinking about something else. But what about the folks who can't do that? So yeah, apparently, sorry, I forgot to turn down the volume on my cell phone before I started doing the show. So yeah, for anybody who just heard R2 chirping, that would be why. Alright, so anyway, where was I? Oh yeah, ranting and venting. Hey, what else is new? But yeah, so I don't know. I am concerned about the type of world that we're going to be leaving for our children, to be honest. I have several children, most of which are reaching early adulthood now. And I'm just worried where we're going to be in 20 years when one of them is pretty close to the age that I am now, and the others are not too far behind them. Because I look back at where we were 20 years ago, and I never in my wildest dreams thought we would have been anywhere near where we are right now. And that's the scariest thing of all. It really is. It's terrifying to think about the fact that in 20 years we could be living basically in some sort of complete socialist society, or even worse, a communist society. It seems that freedom as we know it is slowly going by the wayside. And honestly, it seems like part of it has to do with the fact that everybody seems like at this point they're all pretty much out for themselves. Sorry, I'm trying to actually look for another story, and for some reason I'm not finding it now. Because I had it pulled up, and then my computer went nuts. So yeah, we'll move over to the one that I did have, while I'm still looking for that one. So this is the one that our version of Snurdly brought up a minute ago, that he wanted to make sure that I had talked about, because apparently he talked about it on his show last night. Speaking of which, if you haven't tuned in for it yet, you really need to tune in to the Outer Limits every Sunday night at 6 p.m. Central, right here on K98Talk.com. For now, since a lot of the shows were being done over on Blog Talk, some of his stuff isn't there yet. I do believe he did last night's show on Spreaker, so it should already be available on our webpage under featured shows. And we're working out the kinks to start doing the live streaming programming thing anytime that we're on the air. So by December 1st, you will be able to tune in every day from 6 to noon and hear The Family Factor, then rolling directly into Finding Common Ground with myself and Dave, and then rolling directly into America Off the Rails. How in the world I'm going to do 4 hours of this stuff 5 days a week, I'm not sure yet, but somebody's going to pay me to try, so I figure, what the heck. So let me go ahead and go into this particular story. Sorry, I just figured I might as well get some stuff thrown out there while it was loading. What began as a routine traffic stop in New Mexico ended with a police officer bashing the window of a family minivan with his baton and a second officer firing shots at the van, which had 5 children inside. I should have grabbed my duct tape before I started reading this article. The chief of the state police is promising a full review of the episode, which was captured on a police dashcam on October 28th near the city of Taos and aired by the Albuquerque station KRQE. It began when police pulled over Oriana Farrell, 39, for speeding. An officer approached the car and asked her to wait, but she drove away. When she pulled over a second time, the drama escalated. The officer began shouting commands, "Get out of the vehicle right now." An officer shouted at Farrell, which at that point she did. Then her 14-year-old son got out of the van and rushed the officer. After a scuffle, the child ran back into the van. By this point, backup had arrived. Moments later, an officer used his baton to smash a passenger side window, and a second officer, appearing to aim low, fired 3 shots as the van sped away. The chase came to an end outside a hotel. Farrell was arrested and charged with intentional abuse of a child and fleeing an officer. The son was arrested and charged with battery. The New Mexico State Police Chief called the incident an intense 43-minute-long dangerous situation that placed the public at risk. I have, of course, reviewed the video and do have concerns relating to the conduct of the officer who discharged his firearm, the chief said in a statement. Well, no crap. I mean, come on. Some of this I understand. I've been in those situations. You start out what you think is, so let's get one thing clear right now. For those of you who've never spent any time in a uniform at all, and you hear reporters using phrases like routine traffic stops, there's no such animal, folks. There is no such thing as a routine traffic stop. You have no idea what you're walking into at any given time when you're doing a traffic stop. But we also have to bear in mind, for you folks who decided to start shooting into a minivan, that there were 5 children in that vehicle. I understand they were fleeing the scene of a traffic stop, but you also have to understand that there were children in that vehicle. You have to make split-second decisions. I understand that. I've been the one to make those decisions. There are split-second times when you have to decide, if I don't fire my weapon, am I going to go home tonight? I understand that. But you were in no immediate danger at the time that particular vehicle sped away. Why were you shooting at it? You're trying to invoke the public endangerment clause while you yourself are endangering the public. That makes absolutely no sense. It's not like this was some little podunk town with a sheriff and 1 deputy. We're talking about the New Mexico State Police, for God's sake. If you wanted them stopped that badly, then continue the chase, call in for more backup, and get the situation under control. Why were you shooting at children? What is the matter with you? Were you even thinking at that moment? Because, I've been there. I understand. You were operating on instinct. But that's a problem. When your instinct becomes stop them at all costs, regardless of who's around them, that's a problem. And that, to me, is endemic of a training issue that needs to be addressed by this particular chief. Because I guarantee you, if one officer is doing this, there are others. So again, I'm not trying to call you out. You know who you are. You'll probably never hear this show. But if you do, you know who you are. You need to go over your training materials for your particular department, sir. Or you need to have better standards. Because if this is a rare officer in your department, then that's great. He needs to go. Just saying. You can't shoot in the direction of a minivan full of children because they're evading a traffic stop. You can't. Nothing that happened during that particular incident justifies what you did. It doesn't. Yeah, so a 14-year-old kid decided to attack a police officer. You know what? That was resolved later by that particular kid facing charges. So the lady evaded you now a total of 2 times and sped off yet again, so you decided to shoot in her general direction. Again, what the hell's the matter with you? There were children in this car. Okay. So that's point number 1. Why were you shooting in a van full of children? Point number 2 is, what was up with smashing the window? What exactly was it you were trying to accomplish there, other than fear and intimidation? And actually, the author of the article asked basically the same question. He says, I would be asking a lot of questions about the window smash. What's he trying to accomplish there? And, of course, the gunfire. What is he trying to accomplish there? And I guess this is actually the chief who was asking those questions, because it's in quotes. Until we know why, it's difficult to judge thumbs up or thumbs down on the reasonableness of what happened here. Male bovine excrement, otherwise known as BS. You can't tell me that there was justification at any time to shoot into a minivan full of children. I don't care if she pulled out a bazooka and pointed in your direction. Does not give you justification to shoot into a minivan full of children. Children. Oh, I guess that was a retired police captain who I, again, won't mention by name, but is an expert on the use of force. Watched the video and told NBC News that he had concerns. He said that it was possible the second officer was firing at the tires, but that it would take more investigating. Spike strips, same result, much less violent. Just throw that out there. According to court documents obtained by the Taos News, the family had locked themselves inside the van before the first officer smashed the window. A police account said that the second officer fired in an attempt to keep the vehicle from leaving. The lawyer for the family involved said that it was unjustified. She was flat out scared that something was going to happen to her children, he said in court, according to the newspaper. We ought to talk about the stupidity and recklessness of shooting at a car that has 5 children in it. I never thought I would say this out loud, but for once I agree with an attorney. The subject was also charged with possession of drug paraphernalia. Well, that explains why she might have run. The newspaper reported from Memphis, Tennessee. The subject has prior arrest for driving while intoxicated. 2 apparent marijuana pipes were found at the time of the arrest, the paper said. The 4 other children, aged 16 to 18, were put in the care of family friends, state police told the newspaper. And this story was, of course, published on... actually, I guess this one was just put out today. This particular story broke, I believe, yesterday sometime was the first time I remember hearing about it. But, yeah, I mean, come on, folks. You're shooting into a minivan full of kids. I don't care if you were aiming at the tires. The vehicle was stopped at the time. There were at least, depending on from what I've been able to make heads or tails of here from this particular article, there were at least 2 to 3 officers on the scene. So if you were that worried about trying to make sure they couldn't leave, while the one is smashing out the window and scaring the crap out of everybody in the car, why isn't the other one putting a spike strip in front of the tires in the front of the car? Saying there are plenty of things that you could have done to try to contain the situation, and again, I'm not trying to Monday morning quarterback because I wasn't the one on duty at the time. But I have been in similar situations, and I didn't fire into a minivan full of children. Sorry. Warned you guys up front. This was going to be a hard show for me to do, but I feel like it's one that needs to be done. Because there are just way too many stupid people with badges and guns nowadays. And I'm not quite sure what happened. This is going to be another one. I'm just going to read it to you. I honestly haven't reviewed it yet. Again, just kind of pulling it up, going over the headlines. 13-year-old carrying toy rifle killed by police. The case of a 13-year-old boy, who again shall remain nameless, was shot and killed by 2 Santa Rosa police officers as he spurred a protest of hundreds of outraged citizens. Who was shot and killed by 2 Santa Rosa police officers, has spurred a protest of hundreds of outraged citizens of his hometown. The tragic incident happened on October 22nd, as the young man was walking home after playing with his friends. They were playing with air-powered pellet guns, and Andy was carrying one he borrowed from a friend. Well, I guess I can give out his first name. I won't give out his last name. Sorry. Was reading and didn't edit. Had borrowed from a friend. 2 Sonoma County deputies spotted the boy walking down the street and mistook his toy gun for an AK-47 assault rifle. One of the deputies stepped out of the car and ordered the boy to drop the gun. As Andy instinctively turned around, the officer fired 8 shots, hitting him 7 times and killing him at the spot. Further investigation showed that the reaction was so hasty, his partner didn't even have time to get out of the car before the shooting. We believe that the time period between the time the deputy told his dispatcher what his observations were and the time he advised on the radio that shots were fired was 10 seconds. The officer has been placed on administrative leave pending an investigation. Unfortunately, and this, again, is just me reading from the article, this is just another in a long line of incidents related to police mistaking gun replicas and toys for real weapons. Last year, a Texas 8th grader lost his life for carrying a pellet gun mistaken for a black Glock. U.S. police reports show there are around 200 such incidents per year. Now again, I wasn't there. I'm not in the mind of this officer. I don't know if when the boy turned, if he had the gun leveled in his direction, but at the same time, 10 seconds seems like an awfully fast response time after giving a command, especially if the child was facing away from you to begin with. Maybe, I don't know. Again, this is a hard one, because I've been in that situation, and again, sometimes you only have 10 seconds to figure out if someone's trying to take your life or not. So again, I only read this one to you to make you aware, not making any judgments. But I can say that my heart goes out to the family involved in this. Also, I feel really sorry for this particular officer, because I'm sure this is going to haunt him for the rest of his life. But at the same time, there are things that need to start happening. I mean, there are things that we train for every single day when we are placed in situations where we have to make split-second life and death decisions. There were commands that could have been given, that should have been given. I mean, if it were me, I probably wouldn't have started with drop the weapon. I would have probably started with, this is a police, get down on the ground, put the weapon on the ground, and interlock your fingers behind your head, and I would have stood there and not moved until he'd done so. Because then, if you're giving him a command as succinct as get on the ground and put your fingers behind your head, that hopefully would curtail the instinct to turn around. But I mean, at the same time, if I'm dealing with someone who has a weapon in their hand, the first thing I'm going to do is make sure that my vehicle is at a 45-degree angle with the engine block facing the particular assailant, with me crouched behind the vehicle while I'm giving them commands. So at that point, if they start shooting, there's an engine block between me and the subject, and that gives me more than 10 seconds to make a decision. Training, people. Training. Situations like this are why you drill every day if you're going to have a badge and a gun on your hip. Because you don't want to be this guy. You don't want to deal with this for the rest of your life. So I'm telling you right now, if any of you are in law enforcement that are listening to this show and you have not gone through this in your mind over and over and over again and trained for it over and over and over again and put yourself in that situation of what am I going to do if I'm presented with a situation like this? Let me tell you exactly what you need to do. If you are not on foot and you have a vehicle, you angle your vehicle so that you can have the engine block between yourself and the assailant. Because at this point, with as cheaply as the vehicles are made today and the light materials they are used, the engine block is going to be the only thing that's going to stop a bullet. You then make sure that you are behind said vehicle while you are giving commands. Because then, if they turn in your direction and they start shooting, you have something that can stop the bullet between you and the bullet, thereby giving you time to determine whether or not this person is actually going to hurt you, or whether or not they're just completely surprised because they're a 13-year-old kid carrying a pellet gun who's suddenly being given orders by the police department. I mean, come on, guys. We trained for this stuff so much that I haven't even done this job since 2009, and I still am constantly scanning my surroundings, even if I don't have my weapon on my hip. And I won't put my back to an exit unless I absolutely positively have to, because it's ingrained in me. So, has the training changed so much in the 6 years that I've been, 5 years that I've been out of the game, even on the private side of things, that now you guys are taught to shoot first and ask questions later? Because I kind of thought that went out with the Old West. And again, I'm not trying to slam this particular officer because I wasn't there. But I'm telling you guys, if you are still in the field on a daily basis, there are steps that you are supposed to take to not only make sure that you are safe, but those that you encounter every day are safe. There are precautions that you can take to make sure that you have more than 10 seconds to decide whether or not you need to shoot somebody. Because 10 seconds isn't enough time. It really isn't. And sometimes it comes down to that, so I understand. But there are things you can do to lengthen that time. So if you are an active duty officer who may or may not at some point find themselves in this particular type of situation, whether you be law enforcement, security officer, bail enforcement, private investigator, whatever you are, if you wear a badge and you have a gun, these are the kind of things that you need to be thinking about so that you don't wind up making this type of a mistake. Because this is a mistake. I don't care what the justification is at the time. I don't even honestly care if the kid leveled the weapon at him. Because if he had taken the proper precautions, it wouldn't have mattered if the kid leveled the weapon at him, because he could have been crouched behind the vehicle and said, "Look, kid, drop it or I'm going to drop you." And then by then, maybe the kid would have figured out that the guy wasn't playing. I mean, depending on how the situation went down, the kid may have thought somebody was just giving him grief or giving him a hard time, or maybe one of his friends was following him around pretending he was a cop. I mean, we don't know what kind of games those kids were playing. Maybe they were playing cops and robbers and he was the bad guy. I mean, at this point, this is all entirely speculation. But all I'm saying is, if this is the type of job that you have decided to do, then you need to be taking steps to make sure that you are properly trained to handle these type of situations. That's what you get paid for. You don't get paid to be Wyatt Earp. You don't get paid to decide that, oh, today's going to be the day that I'm going to get laid instead of putting somebody in jail. Or today's going to be the day that I'm going to take somebody who I turned into an informant and start having them deal drugs for me. Oh yeah, we haven't gotten to that story yet. We will in a little bit. You know, and that's going to be for the last part of the show here in just a minute. And I will get into a lot of stuff that I have found that is another reason that has led me to the conclusion that the war on drugs needs to go away. The war on drugs is a complete failure. But that is a story for here in just a minute. I realized I didn't actually take my top of the hour, or bottom of the hour break at 10:30. So, do apologize again. We are working on several different commercials that are going to start being played here regularly, both for K98 Talk and for Common Ground Media Group Oklahoma, since we are producing our own shows that are being played on the station. But for now, you are stuck with my Ben Stein commercial about the Beachbody program, and we will be right back.
We were made to be courageous. We were made to lead the way. We could be the generation that finally breaks the chains.
Giving the Obama administration the big ones up. right from the middle finger. Common Ground Radio with Double R.
Hey folks, I don't know about you, but I always feel like there just isn't enough time in the day. One of those not enough hours in the day kind of things. But, working full time, raising a family, trying to start a company, I'm sure some of you can relate. So, what can we do about it, I guess is my question. Short of hijacking Doc Brown and having him show you the secrets to the DeLorean, what if I told you there was a way where we could get you more energy for the hours that you had in your day instead of worrying about finding more time in your day? Anyway, I found the information through my independent Beachbody life coach, Miss Sherry Britt. You can find her information online at www.beachbody.com/SherryBritt1. Basically, I have to tell you, folks, I haven't been doing it for very long, but it's working. It's one of those total commitment kind of things. I'm using a program called Shakeology. Basically, it's a meal replacement. Think Slim Fast, but better. And also, I have one of Sean T's workout videos. We're doing T25 right now. Started that a couple of days ago. Have to admit, I'm old, I'm fat, and it's painful, but I feel better. And it's one of those things where I'm doing it at my own pace. There's also nutrition plans involved in a lot of these packages if you go for the whole thing. So it's what they like to call a challenge pack. I call it a bundle offer. Basically, it gets you the Shakeology video of your choice and a diet and exercise plan all rolled into one. Basically, it's just one of those things where what have you got to lose? You might as well try it. We all complain that there's not enough time in the day. What if there just isn't enough energy for us in the day anymore? You remember when we were kids? A day felt like a week because we were always doing something. Just my thoughts on it, folks. Give it a shot. Like I said, you can find the information at the link I just gave you a minute ago. What have you got to lose?
If you don't believe in God we trust, then strap your bomb to yourself and ride your camel out of here. You're listening to America Off the Rails with Double R, right here on Common Ground Radio. You're listening to K98 FM's K98 Talk.
Sorry about that. Joys of hitting the wrong button on the console. Anyway, we are back, and again, this is America Off the Rails. This is a special episode of America Off the Rails, focusing on law enforcement and the fact that apparently a small percentage of those involved in law enforcement have lost their ever-loving minds. Not dissing anyone who still does it for a living. Believe me, been there, done that, got the t-shirt to prove it. But yeah, if you're still involved in the game and you're doing some of the crap that these folks are doing, you should be ashamed of yourselves. Just saying. So, yeah, we're going to move into the holy crap, these guys really have been using their badges to do the wrong thing file. 3 Schaumburg cops arrested for stealing and reselling drugs. Yeah. Fun times, folks. Another scandal involving the Illinois police, big surprise, has unveiled a plot to steal drugs seized from dealers and resell them, and 3 Schaumburg officers are now under arrest. Just as things were beginning to settle down after the Schaumburg police chief was recently accused of harassing his ex-girlfriend but cleared of charges, the latest incident puts this particular department right back in the spotlight again. The officers, who shall remain nameless, were working for Schomburg's Special Investigations Division, and they're now facing multiple felony charges that could lead to decades of jail time. Their conspiracy started in 2010 when an officer arrested a man on drug charges and made a deal with him, making him a police informant. But in mid-2012, the officer and his crew made the informant buy and sell drugs on their behalf, which went on for more than 6 months straight until an unrelated event spoiled their plan. So, just saying. But, maybe you guys should have been, using Netflix to watch old episodes of The Shield, because, yeah, in case you didn't realize it, that was kind of the crap they were trying to do on that particular show. It didn't work out for them real well either. Thanks for trying it in real life and making sure that you understood that it wasn't going to work for you either. People are stupid. I'm just saying. Next one is from Tennessee. Police robbing motorists on the highway. This, of course, is posted from January 28, 2013. If you plan on driving through Tennessee on Interstate 40, you better not be carrying a large amount of money with you. As it turns out, the police patrols have a right to seize your cash under suspicion that it's drug money and keep it without any proof you obtained it in any legal way. The reporters from News Channel 5 interviewed one of the victims, who shall remain nameless, whose father was arrested for driving a truck in which the officers found 2 large blocks of cash containing nearly $200,000. What's wrong with having large amounts of cash, you might ask? If I'm a criminal, if they allege me to be a criminal, why would they settle? They do not just let criminals go. The subject of this interview and his father were released with no charges, but he will still have to come back to Tennessee and prove that his money wasn't drug-related due to the current law. In case the owner doesn't take legal action to prove that their money is legal, the police get to keep it all. I think I was working for the wrong department. Oh, sorry, was that out loud? Dang it! Filter's not working again today. But yeah, come on. We're not sure if you're a criminal, but since you have $500 in your wallet right now, we're gonna assume you were gonna use that to buy drugs. So, oh wait, you just cashed your paycheck. Got any proof of that? Oh look, your check cashy stub just miraculously disappeared. $500 in my pocket. Have a good day. Grr. Innocent until proven guilty. Protection against unreasonable search and seizure. Any of these things ringing a bell? Continuing down the line, another case of corrupted NYPD cops revealed. This was May 19th, 2012. 3 NYPD officers were charged and sentenced to jail time for abusing their authority and robbing a warehouse in Carlsted for over $1 million worth of perfumes. The officers, who shall remain nameless, bursted into the warehouse in Bergen County with their badges out, allegedly inspecting the shipment for counterfeit goods. There were about a dozen employees working at the time of the raid, all of them suspicious and shocked with the police officers' behavior. The 3 cops forced all the employees into a small back office where they were tied up. There's a good hint. They tied you up. Wow. And held for over 3 hours. The cops had previously hired 16 day workers and 6 24-foot trucks so they could haul away as much designer fragrances as they could, which ended up with being more than $1 million in missing stolen goods. After the whole false inspection affair was uncovered, the 3 of them were arrested and are now serving up to 16 years in prison. What's shocking is that the mastermind of the group has a long history of authority abuse. Really? That's shocking? During his police career, having worked as an undercover operative for the intelligence division, the officer had more authority than a regular cop, being allowed to use 2 aliases and travel across the country on undercover assignments. Soon, he began acting suspiciously, living a lifestyle too flashy for an officer's salary, and the IAB started investigating allegations that Jones was protecting drug dealers in exchange for cash and narcotics. Whoops, just realized I read out his name. Sorry, folks. Even this was, but it's already in the article, so it's not like it really matters. Even this wasn't enough for him, so he began plotting the warehouse robbery. What gave him and his accomplices up was the fact that 2 of them carelessly used their real names, and I think it's supposed to say debit cards, but it's a typo, when renting out the trucks, a mistake that cost them all 16 years in prison. Hey, we're gonna. Hey, guys, I have this great idea. We're gonna go in here. We're gonna bust up this perfume warehouse. We're gonna use a bunch of day laborers and trucks to haul off all this stuff and sell it off, and probably get close to $1 million. Maybe you should have made sure you gave them instructions not to use their own names and their own debit cards. I'm sorry. That's just hilarious to me. All this planning, all this time, all this, and you're like, yeah, I'm gonna rent this truck right here, and I'm gonna use my own debit card to do it. I don't know. I mean, at this point, it just keeps going and going and going. 4 police officers stole money from street beggars. NYPD cops trade crack for sex and plant drugs on innocent people. Police officer involved in drug dealing is denied bail. That seems like a good story. Philadelphia cop stealing money and drugs. Yorkville cop steals drugs from government collection program. I mean, it keeps going and going and going. NYPD removes bicycles without any reason or prior warning. Police veteran accused of robbing a bank. Police officer robbed a bank. I'm not sure if this is the same. No, these are different stories. Wow. Police officer stole from dead man. Actually, these 2 stories are similar enough that I think I want to go over them. This one's from May 14th, 2009. Let's see if it's the same story or not, because the headlines look different and so do the city names, so I'm a little curious. Earlier today, the FBI and Conroe Police Department announced that 20-year-plus veteran, Sergeant, who shall remain nameless, unless I accidentally read his name further down, has been charged in federal court with bank robbery for allegedly stealing $28,672 from the bank where he worked as a security guard in his off-duty time. The officer in question had been a friend and part of the Conroe family. And I've enjoyed my relationship with him, the Conroe police chief said today during a press conference. We've had no reason to think bad things about him, and it's just sad. According to court documents, the officer entered the First Bank of Conroe on August 11, 2008, wearing gloves, a white motorcycle helmet, and aviator sunglasses, vaulted over the teller's counter and demanded money located in the teller's bottom drawer. Apparently, the branch only kept bait money in its top drawers, a practice that is not industry-wide. Once the robber had the money, he jumped back over the counter and went outside, where he drove off in a silver Chevy Malibu. The FBI says no one saw the robber use a weapon. The very next day, a bank official contacted the FBI, which investigates all bank robberies, saying that after watching the security tapes, he believed the robber was the officer who sometimes worked security at the bank. The bank official said the robber both looked like him and that he seemed to know the bank's layout and in which drawer the money was kept. A teller told the FBI that the robber's voice sounded like the subject's. For months, the investigation continued. Then in late November 2008, Chief Charlie Ray contacted the FBI to say that after watching the security tape, he too believed the robber was the officer in question, based on the hand gestures and the way he walked. Additionally, another member of law enforcement said he thought the helmet the robber wore looked the same as one the officer had worn while go-karting at a children's festival event years earlier. So yeah, fun times. So let's see, that one's from Conroe Police Department and was from a few years back. Let's see what this one is and see if it's the same one. Oh no, couldn't be, because that officer was a lot older. So this is from February 26, 2009. A Carbondale police officer, whose shall again remain nameless, was arrested because of a robbery on a Carbondale bank. The bank was robbed of about $22,000. Another man was also involved in the robbery. The two suspects concealed their faces under motorcycle helmets during the incident, and the officer used some of his police tools. Fortunately, nobody was injured. The officer has been suspended after working as a police officer for about 5 years. He turned himself into the Jackson County Sheriff's Department. There hasn't been said anything about the relationship between these two. The attorney said both men are charged with armed robbery, and since there was a firearm used in the crime, can get an additional 15 years in prison. They are held in the Jackson County Jail, with the officer involved in the incident isolated from general population. The attorney says if the charge is proven true, the officer not only violated the law, but also betrayed his oath of office and the trust of his fellow officers and the citizens of this community placed in him. He would not comment on what the motives for the robbery might have been. The other subject had a bond set of $50,000, while the subject for the law enforcement officer is $1 million. He will appear in court on January 30th, which at this time all of this has already transpired. But yeah, I mean, I really don't understand it anymore, folks. I mean, you have... Wait, hang on. Sorry, that one... I had just had one that caught my attention, and now I'm trying to find it again. Because I'm wondering if this article has a typo. And now I can't seem to get it to find that particular article. So one moment, please. There we go. I think. Yep. See, I don't know about the Philly area, and the reason I was kind of reading through this a couple of times is I know here in the area that I live in, the local law enforcement folks have a weapon that looks a lot like an M16, but it's actually called an AR-15, and it's pretty similar to the ones that we can actually get. It is not an automatic weapon. It is not technically any type of an assault rifle, which that term is a misnomer to begin with. It is a single fire. You pull the trigger, one bullet comes out. You cannot do burst fire or auto fire, but it looks just like an M16. The reason I was kind of doing a double take on this one is, according to this, in Philly, there is an M16 that went missing. Apparently this was posted around April 29th, 2013. The Philadelphia Police Commissioner announced at a press conference that one of the department's M16 rifles had gone missing from storage locker at the Philadelphia Police Training Academy. The chief stated the discovery was made during a regular audit of the locker and its weapons. He also mentioned that only a small, select number of officers had access to the locker, thus assuring the public that the weapon was not stolen by anyone outside of the police department. Is that supposed to make us feel better? I mean, come on. You just basically informed the general public that you can't trust at least one of the officers under your command. and that's supposed to make us feel better. According to NBCPhiladelphia.com, the chief insisted that he had never heard of such a thing having occurred in the department before. He also made it clear that they had the rifle's serial number on record, and that all personnel with access to the locker would be thoroughly investigated, and that the culprit would receive time in the federal penitentiary. Adding that it is a federal crime to possess this type of weapon. As a further precautionary measure, the commissioner has announced that a full audit will be held to make sure all of the department's weapons are accounted for. Whether the M16 rifle was misplaced or an officer forgot to return it is the question on everyone's mind, and an answer is needed before the firearm falls into the wrong hands. Scary times we live in, folks. Just saying. Just saying. And it just keeps getting better and better. I mean, I found it looks like some of the stuff that I'd been wanting to review today has actually been updated since the last time I looked. Because there's even more stuff in here now. And I'm just looking at this and I feel like my head wants to explode. Officer shot and killed the wrong man. This was posted on May 20th, but for some reason I didn't see it in the information I was going through earlier. In Nashville, Tennessee, 2 young police officers wrongly shot and killed a 61-year-old man in his home, thinking he was involved in a drug-related incident. John Adams was shot 3 times by officers after he reportedly shot at them with a sawed-off shotgun. The man's widow said that she thought it was a home invasion when the officers burst into their house. In the panic that ensued, Lorraine shouted to her husband to get his gun, which he did. The officers handcuffed Mrs. Nameless and locked her in another room before the shooting. I'm confused. Yeah. I'm running through a kind of a playback from the narrative of this story as to how the incident probably unfolded. I'm more than a little confused. So let's say, for the sake of argument, they're serving a warrant. From the looks of the picture, they have a no-dock device, and I'm sure this is probably just a reenactment of some sort. So basically, it would appear that, at least from the story that I've been able to gather here, we've got the SWAT team looking folks, all their nice little tactical gear, the AR-15s or M16s, whichever one their particular department allows them to carry. We've got the door breach guy, who usually carries either the battering ram or a breach device, and in this case, if this is how this went down, then he was actually using a no-dock, which is basically the breach device, which just means, hey, we're coming in whether you want us to or not. So they breach the door, they take the time to handcuff the missus, put her in another room, and then the shooting starts. Really, really confused. So either they went in with nothing, marking themselves as police officers, which is contrary to what this particular picture advises, or there are holes all over this story. So let me keep reading here. So at this point, the missus has been handcuffed and locked in another room, and this is all before the shooting began. The husband was shot 3 times and died later at the Vanderbilt Medical Center in Nashville. The police chief of this particular department admitted that the police had gotten the wrong information from a drug informant and had made a mistake when breaking into the house. He said, "It's a very severe mistake, a costly mistake. It makes us look at our own policies and procedures to make sure this never happens again." The chief insisted that the 2 young officers were not at fault, although the widow of the deceased thinks otherwise. They need to get rid of those men were their boys with their toys, as the widow put it. The case is now being handled by the Tennessee Bureau of Investigations as well as the NAACP, who feel that race may have played a part in the officers' hasty actions, considering that the two young officers were white and John Adams was black. The police chief and the family members of the deceased do not seem to think race played a part, but one thing is for certain: the incident will strain relations between the police and the members of the community. The chief handed over all of the evidence to the Investigation Bureau and the District Attorney General. Wow, that's my cousin's name. Anyway, I'm not going to read that name either. For further investigation. A simple but effective step has already been made, and that is to have every warrant carefully reviewed by a command officer beforehand. Okay, I just want to walk up to the police chief and give him the "you should have had a V8" sign, the smack to the forehead. The fact that you weren't having somebody do that beforehand? Really? Before this happened, you didn't have a command level staff officer reviewing all warrants before they were acted on. And now that's supposed to make this all better. Why was that procedure not in place in the first? Why was it not there to begin with? Not only that, but I'm sorry, but there are holes all over this story. If you took the time to handcuff the missus first, how was there even shooting ever involved in the first place? Did you guys not identify yourselves as police officers? Did you not have the nice big bulletproof external vests that say police all over them at the time that you went into the door? Could you not have maybe knocked on the door first to see who answered? Just in case you had it wrong? This is what concerns me. We are turning our police officers into paramilitary personnel without proper training. They don't train for this type of stuff, people. That's not what our police department was designed for. And it's not just that. I don't want them having that type of training. I don't want them to be randomly going in, kicking in doors, and being able to serve no-knock warrants, and being able to do this, and being able to do that. That's not what this country was founded on. The Fourth Amendment is gone. If anything, these stories that I've shown you today have proven over and over and over again that the Fourth Amendment is gone. There is no longer any protection against reasonable searches and seizures, and if you don't believe me, just look at the crap that the federal government is doing. And then take another hard, long look at all these stories that I've given you today. These are clear violations of unreasonable searches and seizures over and over and over again. I mean, come on. If it was the wrong house, the warrant is voided. That's how that works. If you're not searching the right house at the time that you have a warrant, it doesn't matter what you do when you're in there. All of it's going to be illegal. And this is a situation that cost someone their lives, all because they had the wrong house. And again, something with this story is not right. It makes no sense to have them knock in a door, go into the home, handcuff someone, and then the shooting starts. Now, the other thing that's setting off bells and whistles and alarms and basically right now, in my head, it sounds a lot like a Star Trek episode, because I've got alarm klaxons and warning bells going off all over the place. They were serving this particular warrant because they believed the male suspect in question was involved in drug-related activities. So why did they handcuff the female? If they were in the home, able to restrain someone, why did they not restrain the person who they assumed was going to be the immediate threat? Or even better, there were at least two of them from this story. Pretty sure you probably could have detained both of them and controlled the situation before shots were ever fired. See, when I first started reading this story, this is how I envisioned it was going to happen. They served a warrant on the wrong house, basically broke in a door. On the way through the door, the gentleman starts shooting because he assumes it's a home invasion. That almost makes sense. Almost. The problem is, according to the wording of this particular story, that's not how this happened. They served the no-knock warrant, broke in the door, went into the home, detained a suspect, or detained an individual, put them in another room, and then the shooting started. To use a term of a buddy of mine, Dave, over on the other show that I co-host, Finding Common Ground, my pocket bolshometer just pegged and I think it broke. Something about this story sucks. I mean, again, the story plainly reads, the officers handcuffed the missus and locked her in another room before the shooting began. What part of that even makes any sense at all? I'm just asking, because if you can give me a scenario where this makes sense, feel free to hit me up. You can email me at r@k98talk.com. You can also shoot me a Twitter message once you follow me over at _r_okc. I mean, if you can help me find a way to make this particular story of all of them make sense, I will forever be in your debt, because at this point I have to say I'm pretty much losing faith in not only humanity in general, but the folks that are supposed to be protecting humanity in general, because this story makes absolutely no sense. And the fact that the police chief is all like, well, from now on, we're going to make sure that all of our warrants are reviewed by a command-level staff member before proceeding. Well, no crap. Maybe you should have done that before this incident happened, because, yeah. Again, my head kind of feels like it's going to explode. So. Okay, this has got to be a headline typo. Stationary police car attacks and kills young New Yorker. This is Dateline, April 28, 2013. A year ago, on April 12th in Brooklyn, a 27-year-old man was killed by NYPD officers after they chased him from Bayview houses for allegedly stealing paving stones. According to witnesses, the police chased the subject in their police cruiser and eventually ran him over with one of the vehicles. So I'm confused, because it just said stationary. DNA info claims that witnesses saw officers pull Robinson from under the car, yelling, wake up," at the young man before throwing him onto the hood of the car. The twist in this whole tragedy is that the NYPD now claim that Robinson actually ran into a stationary police cruiser, causing him to fall back and fatally hit his head on the pavement. To make matters even worse, the NYPD sent Robinson's family a bill for damages caused to the cruiser in the incident, which was quickly withdrawn after the media picked up on it. District Attorney, in this case, is considering whether to bring the case forward to the grand jury. The Daily News reports that the District Attorney will bring an independent expert to reconstruct the crash before he can make any further decisions on the matter. Okay, so let me see if I can wrap my head around this. According to the NYPD, the subject in question ran into a stationary police vehicle, moving quickly enough to somehow cause some damages, then fall backwards, hitting his head, and basically expiring from the injuries. So you send a family the bill for the damages. Okay, last time I checked, and I could be wrong, because, we had this discussion towards the beginning of the show. I understand that vehicles are not made as sturdily as they used to be, but last I checked, there were things like push bars and all kinds of things on police cars, and damages from them running into a stationary vehicle. Yeah, not really buying into that one. Just saying. So yeah, let's just leave it at that, I guess, because we are coming up to the end of the show here, down to about 5 minutes. Did want to let you know, I do have a show coming up in the works, hopefully once we go 5 days a week. I have someone who does some poetry that I plan on giving some airtime for, and hopefully can talk them into doing an interview. We do have some other interview shows coming up on Finding Common Ground as well. Have a local politician who may be doing an interview with us shortly. Also have a group involved in a wrongful conviction suit that may be coming on the show soon. If you're listening, you know who you are. I am still working on getting everything put together. I will have one of the Common Ground Media Group crew reach out to you guys in the next few days so we can start ironing out some details. At this point, I do want to do a disclaimer for that particular show, not just like this show, not picking any sides, not saying anything is factual or otherwise, simply bringing you the stories and letting you make your own decisions. Also have something in the works here locally as well that was brought to my attention by a longtime friend who I am looking into. So we do have a lot on tap in the coming weeks. Part of it is Like It or Lump It. You're going to be stuck with me soon, 4 hours a day, at least 4 out of 5 days out of the week. I'm still trying to figure out the Wednesday thing, because honestly, that's one of the days off that my wife and I have in common. So, it may be something where on Wednesdays I may have Denny C sit in with Dave on Finding Common Ground, and there may either be not an America Off the Rails show that day, or there may be a replay of another one. But at this point, still trying to work out some details here, because while I do definitely want to get this off the ground, since I am also going to be working full-time, I also want to try to find a way to spend as much time with my family as I can. So, still some things that we're trying to figure out, but I'm not going to keep boring you by talking shop. Just wanted to kind of give you guys a heads up, because effective December 1st, you will be able to hear us streaming live most every Monday through Friday. May not always be me hosting. Heck, I may even actually just have somebody sit in for me on Wednesdays and do the show, because that would be kind of cool to have other folks come in and host my show. I'd kind of feel like one of the big boys. So yeah, that may be something we think about. But anyway, it has been my pleasure hanging out with you folks today. Again, this is Double R. You have been listening to America Off the Rails. This is our police state episode, a special episode I decided to put together. And again, you've been listening to someone who used to have a badge and a gun on for a very large percentage of his adult life, watching the things that have been going on, and realizing that if somebody doesn't say something or do something soon, we're going to find ourselves in the same type of situations that we're finding in our government, which is a bunch of people that are only out for themselves, trying to see who all they can screw over. Again, it has been my pleasure. I hope everybody enjoys the rest of your Monday. I know most of you are groaning right now because you're like, shut up, it's Monday. Sorry, I know I'm slightly chipper, but it is technically my Friday at the day job, but it really doesn't matter because I'm working a half day tomorrow. Plus, I will be back tomorrow on Finding Common Ground with my buddy Dave. Catch us live at 8 a.m. You guys have a great rest of your Monday.
But tell them if I don't survive.
You are now tuned into the Bush Leagues of Talk Radio, right here on the all-new K98 Talk.
Screw you guys. I'm going home. Later.
Game over,